Okay, so I've actually found a pretty decent website on sentimental novels. Just scroll down through it. It explains what they are, has some good characteristics, mentions some of the authors, a lot of the ones that are on your outline. Um, the quote that's on your outline, a damned mob of scribbling women, that comes from Nathaniel Hawthorne. And I'm guessing most of you recognize that name. He's the person who wrote The Scarlet Letter. I suspect, though, that most of you haven't heard of Maria Cummings. She's also on this website. She's also on your outline. She wrote a book called The Lamplighter. And The Lamplighter is a perfect characterization of these sentimental novels. Usually what happens is there's a young girl. She goes through all these troubles. All these things happen to her, but at the end, she triumphs. And in this way, these novels are also kind of contradictory, kind of like we said, Godey's was, right? Godey's Lady's Book was, the editor was Sarah Hale, so she's telling women how to live one life, but she's not living that life. So these novels are similar. A woman often writes them, and throughout the whole novel, all these things go wrong. In The Lamplighter, um, the main character, her mom dies in childbirth. Her father dies of tuberculosis. She gets hit by a train, and that all happens in like the first 10 pages, right? So then there's all this other stuff that happens throughout the book too, but she triumphs. So again, not really living that called domesticity, but what does she have to do at the end? At the end, in all of these books, the main character has to get married. And so in that way, it fits that call to domesticity. It's like every Disney movie before Brave, right? That they're on their own, they're doing their thing, but they always gotta get married at the end. These novels are incredibly popular. So that quote, a damned mob of scribbling woman, I mentioned comes from Hawthorne. He could have said this about any of these women, but Maria Cummings, I suspect, he might have found it most aggravating. Her book, The Lamplighter, in the first 3 weeks it's released, sells 4 times as many copies as The Scarlet Letter sells in Hawthorne's whole life. So we can think about that. In the first 3 weeks that her book is released, it sells 4 times as many copies as The Scarlet Letter sells in Hawthorne's whole life. Of course, Hawthorne gets the last laugh because you all know his name, but none of us knew Maria Cummings' name, I suspect. Um, Something else to think about is most of these women write these novels with pen names, because again, it's not really appropriate for them to do this. And a modern day connection to that might be J.K. Rowling. I would like to think in 100 or so years we'll all be studying Harry Potter in college, but I suspect that we won't because it's popular fiction. Much like these novels are popular fiction, so they're often dismissed. They're also written by women, which sadly often are dismissed. And much like these women wrote with pen names, when J.K. Rowling initially Harry Potter was being published, she was told that little boys won't read a book written by a woman, and so that's why her name is initial. She doesn't actually have a middle name. She just took the name of her mother and made it initial for her middle name. And so if this is happening to women in the 20th century, imagine what women were up against in the 19th century. Again, I think J.K. Rowling also kind of the last laugh there. 2 more quick points to note, and that's about the book Little Women and about the book, Fanny Fern was the other one I wanted to mention. So Little Women, if you all had a chance to see the newest Little Women, I super recommend it because it makes this point so well in the film. Initially, when this book was written, it ended with what we think of in the United States as part 1. So Jo did not get married, but her reader and the publisher were like, this can't happen, like she has to get married. Jo never wanted, Louise Alcott didn't want Jo to get married because Jo was modeled off of her, and Louise Alcott never marries. So she kind of, like, I could say the last laugh, but she justified it in her own head by having Jo marry the professor, so that this was more an intellectual relationship. And the other book that you have on there, Fanny Fern, Ruth Hall is written by Fanny Fern. The reason that's an interesting one is a lot of these books are autobiographical, like Little Women was for Ruth and Alcott. But in Ruth Hall, Fanny Fern doesn't have her main character get married at the end, which again goes against the kind of standards of this genre. And of course, what's interesting in real life, Fanny Fern, again, that's a pen name, not her actual name, she did get remarried because, again, you can't really sustain yourself as a woman without a husband in the 19th century. All right, if you have questions, you can leave those in the discussion board at the end of this module. Thank you. Take care.